On most days, Midas truly felt like a king. He had the house, he had the career, he had almost everything that he had ever wanted. Of course, he could feel his beautiful wife Goldie pulling away, but that was just one thing. He could live with that, right? Of course, he had lost his best friend and former agent to work with this guy who he didn't trust as far as he could see him, but he could live with that too, right? Midas had also put off having children with his wife Goldie until they found themselves in their later adult years, but he could live with that too, right? Midas truly loved Goldie, but he loved himself and his career just as much, and if he were truly honest, maybe more. And as he sat in his throne of gold, talking to his agent, Dion, that he did not trust, he couldn't help but wonder how he got to this place. Midas started off in Del Sol Valley in very humble beginnings. He had a decent house, but it was far from the life that he envisioned as an actor. You see, Midas wanted to be world famous. It was hard for him now, even thinking back to these times. When Midas lived in this home, he was in his mid-20s, and by now he thought he would be a superstar. He had been naive, he realized now. He knew he had the talent, but it wasn't easy to find success. Still, he decided to reach his achievements, he had to be ambitious, so he would make bucket list items. He did splurge for some things in his home. He had a nicer bed. He had a guitar. He started off leasing his home and then decided to try to buy it. It was probably a mistake. But this day set his path on something that would change his life forever. He just didn't know it yet, but it started off by needing to meet his best friend at the flea market. Midas always went out and about in town in the hopes of meeting someone who could be important enough to change his life. He was doing the best that he could, but it was really hard to navigate this need to be famous. He had no fame points. He had barely booked any gigs. His best friend is who he's meeting today, so he's looking around for her. But luckily, his best friend is an agent. He was lucky enough to get some gigs right away, but they were always small. He wanted more. His friend would tell him to be patient and it would come to him, but he just didn't have the best patience in the world. But he did know, even though it was the flea market, sometimes famous people would hang out here. So Midas would make himself visible. Sometimes he would pretend to be on the phone to make himself seem more important. But Midas knew that he didn't have a lot of simoleons and that he needed to get some quickly. Something else that Midas liked to do is play the guitar. He always brought his guitar with him, and he actually spent way more than he should on this golden guitar, because to him it represented a level of fame that he would like to achieve one day. So in his mind, it was worth blowing all of the simoleons he had at that time on it. Midas was excellent at the guitar. He was an excellent singer, and he felt like these things gave him a leg up over some of the other competition. As Midas played, he could see his agent sitting nearby. This is his agent, Cassandra Prim. Cassandra is dressed down today, and she usually prided herself on dressing the best that she could. But Cassandra was pretty humble. Brittany Child is a proper celebrity, and this is the type of person that Midas would definitely want to meet. In this moment, he also looks across and sees someone who catches his eye. Her name is Goldie Christopher. She is beautiful, but he doesn't know her, but he sees that she is here with Cassandra. As Midas sits here talking to Cassandra, he does have Goldie over here in the corner of his eye. All he can think about is the fact that Goldie looks beautiful. In this moment, he decided to ask Cassandra to introduce him to Goldie. He wanted to know who she was, how long she's known her, and that's when Cassandra let him know that she had met her a few months ago and that they were becoming really close friends. Now, Midas also knows that Cassandra likes women and men, and he did ask her in that moment, was it anything more going on? Cassandra told him no, it was truly just a friendship. But Midas was smitten. Once he found out her name was Goldie, he felt like they were meant to be. One thing that his bestie Cassandra said was, if you're gonna play, leave Goldie alone. And already Midas wants to become friends with Goldie. Cassandra loves Midas and she thinks that he's an excellent person. However, she knows that he can be a bit of a player, but he's been a very loyal friend. He has been such a loving friend, and she can't see a reason why him and Goldie would not be a good match together. These memories were bittersweet for Midas because he can remember over a time when he was so happy, but was still striving to be what he felt like he could be. The flea market was almost over when Midas decided to make his move because his bestie, Cassandra, did talk him up to her friend. Their romance sprouted quickly, and before the night was over, he can remember them holding hands. He can remember them staying after the flea market. He can remember Goldie asking him out on a date. And he couldn't believe it, so of course he said yes, even though he had a gig the next day. Since Midas and Goldie were already in the city in San Myshuno, they decided to go to the Stargazer's Lounge. He decided that he would splurge on Goldie. He was again attracted to her beauty. He thought she was one of the prettiest Sims that he had ever seen. He was also attracted to her name. Midas felt like it was an omen. He felt like he and Goldie were meant to be together. He knew that he wanted fame and ambitions, and he wanted all the best things in life. He did not want to have to struggle. He didn't want to have to want for anything. And with a name like Goldie and a face like hers, of course she could be by his side, he imagined. But he was starting to realize quickly, even during their first date, that Goldie was sweet. He also realized, as far as interests go, they were opposite in a lot of ways. Midas knew that he could be vain. He couldn't help talking about himself at times. And he would tell Goldie, I'm going to be a famous star. And she's like, you're very charismatic. I'm sure you could be. I'm sure that you'll go as far as you want to go. Midas loved that about Goldie. He loved that she would build him up. And as the night went on, they found themselves at the Stargazer Lounge, stargazing. And Midas, despite all the surface level things that he noticed about Goldie, he could feel himself starting to fall in love. During that time, Midas had never believed in love at first sight, but he was starting to believe it with just one day with Goldie. Midas could feel his heart thumping, and he knew this was the woman for him. But in that moment, he also felt conflicted because how could he be with her? He was focused on his career. It was the only thing that he was truly driven by. Everything he did for himself, making himself better, it was always in the name of making it to the top. He would tell Goldie she was beautiful. He found himself asking about her more than he ever asked about anybody else. She would blow kisses at him, and he was lost. At this time, they were both satisfied in their romantic relationship. They had shared their first kiss. It was going so well. He did not want the night to end, so he asked her to stay out with him longer, and she readily agreed. He found himself being more affectionate with Goldie. He found himself just wanting to please her. And then Goldie was asking to stay longer as the night and the hours ticked by. Midas just felt like this was the woman for him, and so he asked her, would you want to be married one day? And Goldie said absolutely. And Midas was honest with her. He told her, I want to be married, but I'm not ready right now. I want to be able to take care of a wife. I know you're not saying you want to marry me. I know this is our first date, but would you wait on me? And Goldie, who always thought that was something crazy to do, found herself saying absolutely she would. And so Goldie and Midas found themselves working their way to the dance floor. And Goldie told Midas, I don't usually dance. Midas told her, I'm an excellent dancer. And Goldie found out that he definitely had some moves, and she just tried to keep up while Midas kind of side-eyed her. But he also thought that her moves he thought they were cute. Soon enough, they started to feel wholesome together, all in the first date, because Midas felt like he could be his true self. Even with his best friend, she would tell him that he talked about himself too much, but Goldie never said that to him during their date. Midas could just be everything that he was. One day turned into two, and wherever they went, they always found themselves at the Stargazer's Lounge. It was a favorite for them. Midas really liked how open Goldie was there. He liked that she would just be herself with him here. So no matter where they went, this was always a spot in the city that they loved to be in. And then Midas started to feel scared because his career wasn't taking off the way it should. He was nervous that he would never be able to take care of Goldie. Months had gone by, side now. He was starting to think that Goldie was looking for a proposal, even though she never brought it up. As they would continue to date, Midas would tell Goldie that he wanted to give her the world. He had found out so many things about her at this point. He just wanted to be everything for Goldie. But no person can be everything for someone else. But that is not a lesson that Midas had learned at that point. There's one night that Midas would never forget. It was such a romantic night because he and Goldie just stayed at his house. They were just having romantic moments. They would go outside and relax. And he even told Goldie this day, I would cook for you. I would find people to clean for you. Goldie was standing outside hanging out like, really? Because she knew that Midas could not cook or do any of those things. She started to think she should come and help him out because she was afraid that Midas would truly hurt himself if he cooked by himself. In that moment, he told her, no, I've got it. So she stood to the side and cheered him on. She did tease him and say, I'm kind of scared to eat food that you would cook because for months, he had never cooked for her. But she found herself finding out what he was going to prepare. And he said, I'm just going to make a salad. I read how to do it. And she's like, really? And she would sneak ingredients into the salad, like a little pepper and things like that when he wasn't looking, because Goldie was not going to take herself out eating a salad that Midas made. But they were a lovely couple. Midas had been embarrassed to bring her to his home. They had been long distance by this point for a couple of years because Goldie lived in Willow Creek. Midas didn't have a lot, but every extra dollar he made, he would use to spend the money to fly to see her. Goldie that night told him that the salad was delicious. She was so happy to finally see Midas's home because he had kept her away from his place for so long. She had even asked him at one point, was he married secretly? Midas reassured her that he was not, but he could not find it in himself to admit that he was ashamed of his place. From Goldie's perspective, she never thought that there was anything wrong with Midas's home. Never once. But it didn't matter because that's what was in his mind. And at this point, Goldie asked him, could they move in together? And Midas told her, I don't think it's the right time. And it made them have a strained relationship. So Midas did everything he could. He apologized. He reassured her because he realized that he had never told her before, but he loved Goldie. And a part of him was protecting his heart. So he decided he had to let her know how he felt. He could lose her because he wouldn't let her move in. But the reason why he wouldn't let her was because he really wanted her to have better. But Midas did his best in this moment to distract her. And that distraction led to woohoo. And Midas liked woohoo, and Goldie liked woohoo too. But those early days were really difficult for Midas because he was still booking small gigs. He would book commercials. He would book events where he could dress up in costumes. He knew Cassandra was working hard for him, but he was still doing music events because of his skill with the guitar and his singing skill as well. He just found it really difficult to stay with Goldie, to maintain the relationship with her, even though these were thoughts he was projecting. And Cassandra made sure to compliment him on his relationship and encourage him because she let Midas know that he was making a way. By this time, Midas was 27 and his life consisted of getting calls from friends like Leanne. They would tell him when celebrities were around, and he would try to chase down celebrities if he could catch them in places, just hoping to get his big break. And sometimes he would come to the lounge and no one would be there, but he could never stay too long because he was always dashing from one gig to the next. Midas hated chasing other stars because he felt like he was a star himself. Still, he needed to compete, he needed to be known, and he needed to try to get to know celebrities so that he could make it. That's what Midas would do. He would say, hey, I'm your biggest fan. Could I get an autograph? And then he would have to go to work. work. There were a few events in Midas's life that changed the trajectory of his future. And one was meeting Goldie. The second was this call. Hello from the other side. You don't know me, so this might sound weird, but you're going to inherit from me. I heard through the grapevine that you were a good, upstanding sim. Make sure that you plan for your money. And this was up Midas's alley. Then Goldie called him and said, I'm working and it's stressful, but I just wanted to call and see if you're having a good day and say that I love you. Midas said, I love you too. I'm bringing you food. No one had ever just called Midas to tell him that they loved him. And he wanted to do whatever he could for Goldie. And he definitely went to bring her food that day. He did not know it at the time, but that saved his relationship because after he would not let her move in, Goldie was not sure that she could continue to move forward because they had been dating for a couple of years at this point. She just couldn't believe it. She's like, sweetie, you're so good to me. Could you bring me tacos? And that was another thing he liked about Goldie. She never asked for more than he could give her. The third thing that changed in his life, he passed a very important audition. On the surface, it seemed like it was for a commercial booked as a rodeo clown, but a new person that would enter his life saw this commercial and he started to get new jobs through his best friend and agent, Cassandra. Fast forward a few years later, Midas was now a supporting actor, and Cassandra, his best friend and agent, had done very well for him. She had represented him well. One day, Cassandra called Midas and asked him could she stay over for a couple of days. Of course, Midas told her sure, because she would come into town sometimes. She did not stay in Del Sol Valley, which he often questioned. He did. He would ask her, why is it that she didn't stay in town? And she would say that she lived in an acting hot seat too, which was Tartosa. It was also home to many stars, but Midas never agreed with that assessment. Today, he decided to tell Cassandra that he had big plans with Goldie, and she's like, yeah, me and Goldie talk all the time. She let him know Goldie is saying that she's ready to be married, and she's like, quit playing games with Goldie. And Midas is like, no, absolutely not. I'm ready to marry her. And Cassandra's like, that is so great. He's like, yes, I plan to propose. I fixed the place up some, not a lot. Midas is also going to tell Cassandra, like, congratulations. I heard you've been taking on more music clients and I'm doing really well in my supporting actor role. She's like, yes, but I got some big news that's going to change your world. But let's go out, me, you, and Goldie. And he's going to go right over to call her. She's not going to tell him the news until they can all go out together. I got this bowling alley on the gallery. It is called The Colorful Bowling Alley by Zakira Monet, and the original was built by Lil Dizzy 72, but this version was built by Zakira Monet. Midas quickly agreed to get Goldie. Goldie and Cassandra and Midas all went to the bowling alley to hang out because Cassandra had told them that she had huge news. So as they all sat and talked, they had fun and bowled and did different activities all together. As they all sat and talked, Cassandra told Midas, so I've got you the biggest gig of your life. You're going to be on a sitcom. And Midas couldn't believe it. Cassandra immediately started cheering him on. Midas was so happy. Midas is like, are you sure? Cassandra told him, I'm absolutely sure. You have been doing a great job as a supporting actor in your past several roles. Goldie's like, Midas, you've got to believe in yourself. You're great at a lot of things. And he's like, yeah, like my music, my acting. Midas is vain, so he knows what he's good at, but he still has such a hard time. He's having a hard time believing this. But Goldie's like, yes, you're finally arriving. This is great. As he thinks about it, he's like, yeah, she's really right about this. He really likes the things that she's saying to him. Midas is kissing Goldie. In between kisses, he's telling her, I know that things have been strained between us. I know it's the long distance. And Goldie is caught up in the kisses, but she's listening and she's thinking, what can fix that? She doesn't think anything can fix it. Midas is telling her that I've gotten you something. Midas is kissing Goldie. He wants her to know how much he loves her, and he really does. Being with her in the setting, looking into her beautiful eyes, he knows that he wants to be with her, but he just struggles with making the steps, and sometimes he struggles with knowing what Goldie wants because he can understand wanting things, but he doesn't understand not wanting things. Using this utopia mind, he's purchased her an expensive gift because he doesn't know what else to do. And she's like, oh my God. She's like, babe, this is really expensive. And he's like, I can afford it. I'm doing better than I've done before. Goldie is like, I don't need things. But she loves Midas. She loves Midas King. She wants to be Mrs. King. Their relationship has been so strained that she was actually thinking about breaking up with him. And this gift would not stop that. And even though she's really touched that he thought about her, because during these couple of years, it's just been so strange. He's gonna tell Goldie, I want to work on us. She's just trying to see how can that happen. Midas is gonna tell her right here in this bowling alley that he wants her to be happy. He wants their relationship to be happy. He's gonna ask her to work on it and profess his undying love. And Goldie really likes that. She's starting to feel flirty. I wish this guy would really go away. He's gonna ask her to move in, and she's gonna sell her things and move in with him. Cassandra, his bestie, is actually gonna go home. He texts Cassandra to let her know that Goldie's moving in. It has actually been years, so Midas is actually in his 30s now, doing really well in his career, and he's feeling confident enough to have Goldie move in. But Goldie has noticed changes in him. She's noticed that he has started to dress differently, like the gold jacket, but she sees glimpses of his old self. She really loves him too. She just wants to marry Midas, and they've talked about starting a family. Whoa, what a trick bowling shot. And Midas has agreed that he wants that. And Midas has realized that Goldie is his soulmate. And he knows that he has gone too long in this thing. Like, he should have long ago proposed to her. He just is always surprised by her, like her bowling skill. He never forget the first time they went bowling and she did a spin move to show off. And he could not believe it. Midas felt confident about Goldie living with him. Oftentimes she would come to town and they would hang out all night because they didn't get to see each other a lot. This is what Goldie needed to feel loved and secure, for Midas to forget about money, because she could always take care of herself. Sure, she didn't have the finest of everything, but she had her own place, her stuff. And in that moment, Midas decided to surprise Goldie with a proposal. And of course, she said yes. It had been 7 years. She didn't think that Midas was going to propose. She was absolutely shocked when he asked her to live together. Midas had gotten a little fame now, but now that he was going to be on a sitcom, he knew that everyone would know his name sooner or later. Even now, people would sometimes walk up and say, didn't I see you on this movie or this thing? And it would make Midas so happy. He couldn't wait till he was a star. This was Midas's new life. Goldie stayed with him. She was the love of his life. He would be starting his sitcom in a few months. He didn't recognize it at the time, but indeed these were probably the best days of his life, where he had hope, he had anticipation, he had everything that he needed. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. You're watching Just a Mom That Sims. I'm KT, and you've just finished watching episode 1 of my new fairy tale series. So if you like a good story and you like to have fun, please consider liking, subscribing, following, commenting. Just do all the things. And until next time, remember, keep simming, be happy, and always have a blessed day. Bye-bye.